Jesus raised up disciples, and then the epistles are written, the gospels are written, and we are challenged in how we relate to God and how we relate to others. And so we've been going through the 51 on one another's. This week's is, let me just tell you, is challenging for any of us. John 13:35, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Now you may think that sounds pretty easy, but let's set the scene here in John chapter 13. This is at the Last Supper. Jesus is sitting around with his disciples. Jesus is going to say this, but prior to saying this, he sits around with the disciples. He washes each of their feet. And when you think about just washing feet, you got to remember in this culture, sandals were worn, many miles were traveled, and so feet were pretty dirty. And so it was a very menial task to do. And none of the disciples did it to Jesus, but here Jesus is sitting and washing the disciples' feet. Soon after, he pulls out communion, the bread and the wine, and he starts to talk about what this is with his disciples. And he goes and says, the person who dips this bread with me is the person that is going to betray me. Peter is on the other side of the table asking John, kind of whispering to John, hey, find out, John, who is it? Ask Jesus. Jesus makes this statement, and then he dips the bread, which is with Judas, and Judas is told to go and do what he is supposed to do quickly. Judas gets up from the table, and the disciples, even in the Gospel of John, think that, hey, he's went to help with the money. He holds the money box. He's going to help do something for the ministry to pay this or to help this or even help the poor. This is the disciples. They're trying to figure out who it is. They even think that after Judas does what Jesus says that he does, that he's still not the guilty one. Jesus has just washed their feet. And all along, Judas is about to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And then Jesus says, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Now, I want you to imagine this for just a second. That here is Judas, who's been walking with Jesus for 3.5 years or so, just like the other disciples. And none of them know the difference between how Jesus has loved the other 11 and how he has loved Judas. That love is the love that Jesus is talking about here that we should be having for one another. A love that no one could tell if there's a Judas in your life. Now, even as I say that, I can tell you that even speaking about this as we gathered as a church this week, it's easy at times to tell when I feel betrayed or hurt or harmed. We often speak of those things and confide in others instead of confiding in the Lord. But in this moment, Jesus has said this. Judas gets up from the table, and still the disciples have no clue that Judas is the one that's going to betray Jesus. That love that Jesus showed Judas is a love that we are supposed to share with everyone, even if you feel betrayed. So that's the challenge this week. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. How are you loving the Judas in your life? How are you loving the family member in your life? How are you loving who is supposed to be your enemy? This week, let's love like Jesus loved and allow people to know that we're disciples of Jesus because we love even the most unlovable people. And I know it's hard even as I say it, but that's the challenge this week. Love your Judas. Love your family. Love those who offend you. Love those who hurt you. Love those around you so that people know that you're a disciple of Jesus? That's the challenge. Will you take it? Love to hear from you. Love to hear what you think about this. Take the challenge and walk out the love of Christ, even if it's a difficult love to give, because you have been equipped and empowered by the Holy Spirit to love even the most unlovable. Blessings on your week.